Hey guys, I'm Chef Tom with All Things Barbecue, and today we're out here on the patio of our teaching kitchen. We're getting ready to make some pulled pork and grits, and we're starting with a whole pork shoulder. All right, so here we have our whole pork shoulder. This is a skin-on pork shoulder, and it's got two cuts connected that you're probably used to seeing apart, and that would be right here, the Boston butt. We can see our blade bone that we're really familiar with when we make pulled pork. This is usually what we use. And then we have our picnic shoulder on this side. So what I want to do to prepare this guy is first I'm going to take the skin off of the butt side. We're going to expose it just like we would with any other Boston butt. We're going to take the fat cap off so we can see that meat. We can get some smoke and some seasoning down there on it. And then we're going to get this whole guy on the smoker. All right, so we can kind of see in this crevice where our Boston butt and our shoulder meet. And we're just going to make a cut right there down that skin. And then we'll begin to remove the skin and the fat cap. So I'm just making some very gentle cuts as I let the weight do the work for me, because it naturally wants to separate here. And if you're using a nice sharp knife, this will go much easier for you because you don't have to apply so much pressure. All right, so there's that skin, part of that fat cap, but our work's not done yet. We've still got some fat on top of here that we need to clean up. So you can see a little bit of this pink that's attached to the skin. That's that false cap on the fat cap side, and that's just that thin layer of meat that we always take off anyway so that we can really get down to the main part of the meat with our seasoning and with our smoke. Now from here, we're just gonna go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We're gonna take off any of this stuff that's just gonna be chewy and prevents us from getting down to the meat. All right, we can see that we've exposed the meat. We've got rid of most of that fat cap, any of the tough stuff that's not gonna break down. Now we're just gonna flip it over to the other side and clean that up a little bit too. We especially wanna make sure that here our money muscle looks nice. All right, so I'm just using my fingers to feel around to see if we've got any hard stuff that we don't want on there. And of course, I'm trying to expose the meat without getting rid of any meat. So any of this white stuff we see, we'll just want to trim on that and get rid of it. All right, and the last thing I want to do before we get this thing seasoned is just to get in here in this crevice, and you'll recognize this from when you're trimming a Boston butt. There's all of that chewy stuff and all of that connective tissue that we really don't need. So we're just gonna trim that last bit out of there, and then we'll get to seasoning. All right, we've got this shoulder trimmed up nicely. We've exposed a lot of meat, lots of surface area for us to get rub on, but first we wanna inject it. We're gonna be injecting today with Smoke on Wheels pork marinade injection. And this is just one of our favorite injections. It's got some soy sauce, some apple juice, some really nice flavors. It's gonna make a great barbecue pork shoulder. All right, so I'm just gonna move the needle around a little bit to kind of create a pocket and then fill it with the injection. The shoulder does a really good job of letting us know just how much it can handle, because it'll start to come back out somewhere when it's full. And you'll watch that area balloon up as the injection fills the space. Now we're just going to turn this thing over and make sure we didn't miss anything on the other side. All right, so now I just want to mop up some of this excess moisture here. This marinade's going to work really well to help bind the rub to the meat, but we don't want too much on there. And then the last thing I'm going to do before we put our rub on is just score this skin so that we can get some of that rub down there underneath this skin as well. And we'll just do that here kind of in a cross-hatch pattern. All right, and now we can kind of get some rub down there, get some extra flavor in. So we'll be seasoning with two different rubs today. One is Plowboys Barbecue's Yardbird rub. This is kind of our go-to pork rub for barbecue. And then we want to add a little bit of heat with the Cattleman's Grill 8-second ride carne asada seasoning. So we'll put down a base layer of Yardbird. Now remember, we've done all this trimming to expose the meat so that we can season that meat. So we want to make sure that we get in all those nooks and crannies. All right, now let's hit it with some 8-second ride. All right, we're just going to let this set up for a few minutes before we flip it over and do the other side. All right, we can see that the rub is darkening in color and there's these little moisture pockets forming, so we're going to go ahead and flip this over and get the other side. Again, we're coming in with our Yardbird. And then we're going to finish it off with our 8-second ride. All right, our rub is set up really nicely, so we're putting it on the cooker now. We're smoking our whole pork shoulder today on a Yoder Smoker's YS640 pellet grill. And I'm gonna place it here on the second shelf with the picnic end over here by the stack, because I know that the heat likes to come out here, and this is gonna roll over this really nice and get some nice color down here. The cooker's rolling at 250 degrees, and we're not even gonna look at this thing for probably about 4 hours before we check on it. We wanna really let that bark set up. We want all that moisture and all that magic to be working, so we're not gonna mess with it. We're about 4 hours into this cook right now. I just wanna give you guys a peek inside the cooker so you can see what's going on and how our pork's looking. So we've got some redness going on here that's really nice color. We want this to darken up some more before we wrap it though. So we're just gonna continue to develop this bark. It's looking really nice, but for now we just need to let it keep on rolling. We're about 7 hours into the cook now and I'm really liking where the color is. So we know that this pork is taking on a lot of smoke, and now at this point what we wanna do is wrap it up in some foil so that we can expedite that cooking process and really hold all that moisture in there. You can see we have some really beautiful bark going on. I really don't need this color to go any further than what it's at now. So we'll take this guy off and head over to the table. So you can see right here that that meat's really pulling back from that bone, which means we know it's cooking, it's doing its thing. Now the blade bone is right here. It hasn't retracted quite so much, but we'll see that for sure when we come to check on this in a little while. So before we wrap this up, just want to add a little bit more of our marinade in here. Just give it a little liquid to get started on while it's braising wrapped up in this foil. So we want to wrap this fairly tight so that we don't steam off our bark, but we also have to be careful not to poke any holes in it, so be real gentle around the edges. Let's take this back to the cooker. And then just to kind of expedite this cooking process, we're gonna turn this up to 325. So you notice we haven't probed it with a thermometer yet to find out where the temperature's at, because that first part of the process is really just about getting the smoke and the color on the meat. We'll come back and check on this maybe in an hour or two and probe it with a thermometer and see how we're progressing, just to find out where we're at. All right, so as our pork shoulder finishes cooking, we're gonna get started on our grits. Grits we're preparing today are a yellow corn grit. These are not your instant grits from the grocery store. These are a really great product. And we felt like if we're doing this whole pork shoulder and gonna put all this effort into it, that the grits should also be quality. So we're using these grits from Anson Mills. This is a native corn. It's grown in the Carolinas. It's all organic. So this should be some really good stuff, but it's gonna take us probably an hour or so to cook it. So what I've done here is just soak these grits for a while. You can do this overnight. I've just done it for a few hours today. But you get these covered with water, and then you can kind of skim off some of the chaff and stuff from the top. And what soaking these does for us is it allows us to cook these a little bit quicker. I'm gonna begin cooking these in the liquid that it's been soaking in, and we'll add liquid as necessary throughout the process. Now to get this kicked off, what we need to do is bring this to a simmer, and you can see we're starting to get there. And we're just constantly gonna be moving this so nothing sticks, nothing burns or scorches. All right, you can see this is thickening up nicely. It's getting real starchy. So what we're gonna do is turn it all the way down to low and cover it with a lid. At about 5 minutes, we'll check and see how the liquid is doing. And then we're gonna add hot water as we need to so that this corn continue to soak that up. All right, we can see this is nice and thick. Still bubbling a little bit. So I wanna add just a little bit of hot water to this. Maybe a 1/4 cup. And we'll stir that in and then put the lid back on and come check on it again in another 10 minutes. All right, so we're continuing this process of every 10 minutes or so, we're checking on how the water level is doing and making sure that we can add a little bit more hot water for those grits to soak up. I also want to add just a little bit of salt now. And then we're going to repeat this process until these grits are nice and tender. Now these grits have been cooking for about 80 minutes and they're getting nice and tender, so we just want to put the finishing touches on them now. You can see how these have thickened up really nicely. We just want to give a little taste. They're nice and tender. So we have a little bit of salt in there, but we want to add a little bit more, as well as some butter, some pepper, and we're also going to be adding some aged white cheddar. Now for these 12 ounces of grits that we've made, I'm going to add about 6 tablespoons of butter. And we'll just mix those in real quick. They're already softened so that we don't have to worry about it bringing the temperature down, and it melts in really nice. I've got about a cup of this sharp white cheddar. I'm gonna stir this in, about half of it, and let it melt, and then we'll finish it up with the other half. All right, the last thing I'm gonna add here is some fresh cracked black pepper. And the flavor on this black pepper is gonna bloom a little bit as it warms up. So we're gonna let this sit warm while we go check out our pork and get ready to finish our dish. That's incredibly creamy. These Anson Mill grits are really impressive. I'm super excited about how this is gonna go together with the pork. We're about 10 hours into this cook now, and it's time to go ahead and check some temperatures and see how tender this thing is. All right, so we're getting readings over 200 degrees on the extremities. And our coolest spot's at about 196, 197, so that's a really great spot for us to go ahead and pull this off. We'll just open this up and take a look. All right, that's looking great. Look at that bone. Just ready to come out of there. Nice and easy. And this blade bone, we'll just pull right out of there. Now that's nice and tender, but we want to give this a little bit of time to rest before we pull it apart. So we'll just wrap this up loosely, let it sit for, 45 minutes to an hour. All right, so right here you can see where we took that leg bone out. And just above that is the skin that we left covering the picnic shoulder. That skin has kept this meat right up here nice and moist, and you can see how tender it is. Now at the other end, on the Boston butt side, we have the money muscle all the way over here at the end. And this is gonna be some of the best eating on all of this meat. Now we've also got some really great tender pieces in the middle there from the tubes. You've got a really great variety of things to choose from when it comes time to serve. So I'm gonna go ahead and put down a layer of our cheese grits in my bowl here. I'm gonna top that with our pulled pork. And of course I'm going for my favorite part, the money muscle. Those grits are fantastic. They're super creamy, but they've got really great texture to them. And I'm getting lots of smokiness and a little bit of heat from that pork and the 8-second ride. Well, this is a really great combination. You guys gotta give this one a try at home and let me know how it turns out. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please click the subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to thesauce.atbbq.com. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.